So, Jason, can you tell me about what to expect with the podcast we're starting here?
Great question. Well, seems like everybody's doing a podcast these days, but I think one of the reasons we thought to do a podcast was we wanted to speak about our philosophy behind, why it is we're doing what we're doing. We can teach and provide value to our audience, to the people who are listening, and it's a way for us to, communicate like who we are as, as a business, as a brand, and as individuals. And we thought it would translate quite well. And so in this attention economy where people are, finding their information online and trying to find people that they can listen to and trust, we figured we would be a part of that conversation, and it's a good time, to launch and to build that. So that's from my perspective. And I've always been a little bit reticent to head down this path, but doing it, with obviously people I like and trust is a big component and a big reason to do that. So that's from my end. What about from your end?
Why we're doing it and what to expect. Damn, I think the why is I think there's a very large hole in the market, and people don't necessarily know what to do when it comes to property investing. And we have a very valuable resource when it comes to what we know as a team with our hidden partner, James, and also what our direct networks can provide to the community as a whole, to the property community. I think it's incredibly valuable, and I think it would be great for us to share that and put that out in the world.
Yeah, I think you just froze a little bit.
Oh, did I? Okay. All right. Well, we'll just carry on, I guess. So how did we get to this point that we're at now? So we're at this point now. We're filming our podcast, our first podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about exactly how we got here and why, what the thought process behind this decision was?
Yeah, I think what happens is like people find each other in a way that, whether they realize it or not, comes about with a lot of intention. So I think the three of us, we found each other through intention and through decisions, that we'd made that began, probably some time ago, some ways ago. And for me, it stemmed out of convictions that I'd had and a commitment to like values and ideals. And I think practically, we found each other through multiple friends and through our network. And so that, is a practical way that we found each other. But being in different cities and then coming together and finding, each other and coming into a business together takes a lot of steps. And so I would say, from my side, I was very clear on, what my values were as a person and how I wanted those values to translate into the types of business partnerships, that I was involved in. And so I was looking for that before I found it. And then I would say that, coming into, business together and partnership together, there's a process there that's built on relationship and built on trust. And that doesn't happen, overnight. That happens, over time and through observation and through testing. But I would say that, that had obviously happened, with the three of us. And then I think it's been, a result of like testing, what it is that we might be able to do together and do our visions of the future and our values align and our objectives align. And can we, by coming together, like offer value into the world? And so, that's how I see it from a kind of a philosophical and a strategic standpoint. But I would say that, once we figured out, that our values aligned and our visions, were very much in alignment, then it was like, what is the practical, execution of that in the world? And then, how does that work? And so this, podcast, doing media together is an expression of that, is a part of that. And by doing media, by doing a podcast, we're able to, utilize some leverage to speak to and to connect with people who are potentially like-minded like us and want to go on a similar journey. And so I would say that that's a way for us to do that. And what about from your side, your perspective? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been writing a few things down. So I think I'll start how we got to this point. Very similarly to you, I had a specific vision I wanted to achieve for myself and for my family, and something I wanted to do to better our lives. And that vision, I was working my hardest to make that a reality, and I'd gotten a lot further than some people have gotten previously. But I knew that in my heart I wanted more. So, and after meeting yourself and James, I realized that the solutions that we were coming up with for each other's problems were so much better than what we could figure out individually, that I thought it was inevitable that we eventually figured out a way to work together, because I knew that once we can put all of our heads together and then solve other people's problems, the solution of us three would be so much better than anyone individually, that it would just provide so much overwhelming value to the market that it was silly not to do it.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And one thing that resonates with me there is, I think there is a strong, like, masculine tendency to be a lone wolf. And that is something that I've had seasons of doing. And I think what was buried deep in my heart was the conviction that being in a wolf pack, you could do more, do better, but it had to be the correct, like, wolf pack. Running in the wrong pack is maybe not going to serve you. And being a lone wolf can get you very far, but you could go much further with the right team. So I think that was a core conviction of mine that I had. So the flip side was I was hungry for it and looking for it, but also like cautious at the same time. So very similar on that front.
Yeah, I got some words here too. So leverage, intent, vision, value, and practical execution. I think they're incredibly valued and sort of underdone with a lot of new businesses and things that are starting up at the moment. In regards to the pod,
yeah, I think that people, your words are like very important. So the words that you meditate on, think about, and use are very important. And if those words are part of your vocabulary, part of your mindset, part of your, part of, how you express yourself in the world, then they're going to be the things that you're looking for. And even if you just take two of those words, like leverage and impact, and you combine them, then that may narrow the field of what you're looking for and make you more focused. But it's also going to provide, so much more direction and so much more, you're going to look for a better result. So those words, like in your vocabulary and in your heart, are like very, very important. And I would say even in the early stages of, when we were just having general conversations, not talking about business, but just, engaging with each other in relationship, like those words definitely came up in how we were relating to each other or what we were speaking about. And we realized, oh, we have similar words, similar vocabulary, similar, thoughts and intents that, we're coming out as a result of just our general conversation. And in many times, like that doesn't happen. So it's like you go to a country and you realize that you speak the language in that country and you go, oh, like it just feels a little bit more familiar. So I think that's a extremely underrated thing that people often miss, but is very, very, very critical.
I absolutely agree. I think words do have a lot of power, and people don't understand much power their own words plays on their own belief systems, which I think then ties into a whole bunch of other stuff, subconscious, and affects the goals they set for themselves and also the limitations that they can put on themselves. I think that's huge, because I was actually speaking to my brother about this yesterday. We're having a philosophical discussion, but my brother's a lot younger than I am. And we're discussing the fact that if two identical people are trying to perform a task that is difficult, and one person believes he can do it and the other person thinks that he can't do it, who then has an advantage if they're identical? The person that doesn't have belief. What happens after that is they keep, telling themselves why they can't do it. The person that believes they can do it keeps telling themselves they can do it and finding ways they can. And I think in that specific example, the person that believes that it's not possible and they can't do it is almost certainly doomed to failure. And the person that believes they can, at least they got a chance. Like, we haven't even discussed how difficult it is. It could be something that kills people, but the only person I think has a chance is the one that thinks they can get it done.
Yes. Yeah, you have to see it and believe it before it's in reality. Like, it's in your mind's eye and like hidden in your heart way before it's, a reality of something that you've created. So that is absolutely critical.
All right, I guess I agree. And how do you think, or how did you individually become convinced that real estate was the way towards your own goals?
Yeah, so what I'm kind of in touch with, I think, and I think everybody's in touch with this, but I've always valued freedom and wanting to be free. And so I've felt the pain of when I see things that potentially prevent my freedom. And so I would say very early on, I was able to, I have immigrant parents. And so they described to me what it was like for them, moving to a new country, growing up, and, the challenges they faced and how they came to like achieve their goals and vice versa. And so I was able to like pay attention to that and then see and feel like the pain of what was preventing me from doing likewise. And I think one thing I noticed like very early on was how people behaved and how at least in the West, the cost of living and the prices for just even normal daily items was always increasing and outpacing the money that I would be making in a job. And so that, is preventing, my freedom. And I started to then look for solutions. Like, I have a problem that I'm facing, and, what are the available solutions? And I could see that some people had solved those particular problems. And I started to look and pay attention to and get teaching from around who had solved those problems and how had they solved, those problems. And I could see many people who had been, extremely successful speak about the value of investing, first and foremost, and then the value of investing in real estate. And so, I saw that, as, a clear example of results and solutions that people had. Now, that's totally different to then how do you get into that and into that realm. But it was tied into pain that I'd felt and solutions that I was searching for. And then it was engaging in like the practicalities of investing in real estate. But, that's been the journey for me. How about for you?
Well, yeah, as you're talking, I'm writing things down. I'm switching between I'm asking questions and then sharing my own experiences. So how I got convinced about real estate investing was initially was reading a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that led me down an enormous rabbit hole where I actually bought my first house. I think I was 17 or 18 years old. I bought an ex housing commission unit in what was a at the time, not so nice place to live. But it was just me realizing that the richest people in the world all use one tool, and use the tool is leverage, and then they combine that with real estate. So then what they're able to achieve is, over my lived experiences, that they achieve a cash flowing asset which appreciates in value, which allows them and gives them the freedom to do whatever they want. So one small example is someone amassing a real estate property portfolio. What they're doing is they're going to the bank and saying, hey, can you give me most of the money to buy this house? I will sort of manage it and make sure everything's okay. But the benefit is, once a person does have a real estate portfolio, is that I would argue they can manage that portfolio for a couple of hours a quarter. And depending on the size of it, they can have enough cash flow to secure their lifestyle and their family's lifestyle forever. Because especially with Australian real estate, that cash flow, if you've done it right, should be enough to provide for you, your family, and also hedge against the big bad wolf, which is inflation and the cost of living. Because what happens is you've secured a certain amount of cash flow, and that cash flow is also tied to the cost of living. So as the cost of living goes up, you yourself and your family are getting paid while the cost of living goes up. So it was that realization and an expansion on that, which got into development. But it was a realization that the wealthiest people in the world, all of them are involved in real estate.
Yeah. So you're seeing like a common thread of what the wealthiest, most successful people were doing. And then you had teachers along the way, like Robert Kiyosaki, to illustrate at least a framework and a solution. And then you were experiencing that solution, like just as you took steps to keep going and keep going, keep going. Do you think that people, do you find that people have gone down that same path as you experienced that? Like when you speak to, people that like what's the gap between like what you're doing and what they're doing? Like, do you feel like everybody's, thinking the same way as you and taking the same actions as you, or do you feel like it's quite different?
In that regard, I'm in a very special and unique circumstance that I choose who I spend all of my time with. So I've escaped the 9 to 5 per se. So I've probably sampling a different source of people, but predominantly, yes, pretty much everyone in my circle realizes the same thing and realizes that the way to wealth is to walk the path that most people are not willing to walk. And one example I use is, I think, is if you want something that someone else has, do what they did.
Yes. You don't
And
have
so,
to
yeah, in my circles, there are a lot of people that are striving to achieve certain things. And there are some people, for example, that I do business with, or that we do business with, that use leverage, the very magical thing of leverage. Let's say they don't have enough time or something. What they do is they find a mentor or a person or a company to invest in, which is based on real estate, which allows them to build that wealth, which allows them to build that real estate portfolio, which pays them an income, which is hedged against inflation and the cost of living, and to secure the future for their family. So, yeah, I think it's vitally important who you spend time with, and that's why I spend time with the people that I spend time with.
Yeah. Well, what would you say though, if, a person is convinced of the same ideas as to what you're describing, but their circle like isn't reflecting that same thing? So they haven't curated their circle in the same way that you have, but they're convinced of the solution potentially of like investing in real estate and, wanting to be wealthy. Like, what would you say to someone like in that situation?
I think that's an incredibly important question, and I think that's a first step that everyone needs to take at some point. And I'll go back to what I was saying before. I think the only way that person can do that and avoid pitfalls and landmines, which a lot of people fall in, is to find someone that's done it and jump on with their system or get them to show you how they did it. I think the other way is you're cutting a path through a wall of thorns and you don't know which way to go, and it's completely dark and you're not sure what you're doing. I think there are options out there to get help and get your hand held. And that is the smartest way to ensure that your money and your investment and the time you put into earning that money is safe.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Finding people that you could trust, who are competent, who've earned that trust through competency. I think that's a huge difference.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things that everyone can do right now. Even if you are strapped for time, or you've got a successful business and you do want to grow that real estate portfolio and get that passive income, there are options. There are plenty of options exist.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When you're aware of options, you feel like you have a pathway forward. So there's no reason to remain stuck if you're in that situation.
Yeah, I think so as well. And going back to what you said, finding the most competent person that you like, know, and trust to help you out is such a game changer. I think anyone would be foolish not to head down that path, because that's an option for everyone, to find someone that they want to listen to and that can help them, or even if they want a full tailor-made package where they just go to that person and say, hey, I've got this lump of money, can you just help me with it? That's an option too. I think there's that option, and the other option, which is kind of the only other option, is that you get that money that you worked really hard for, and then you've spent the last 10, 20, 30 years saving and building up, and then you learned the hard way with your own money.
Yeah.
That's an option. I just don't think it's a good one.
Yes, that's not a good option.
That's how I did it the first time. That's how I know it's not a good option.
Yeah. Speaking from experience.
Absolutely, speaking from experience. And yeah, that's where I think we all need to stand on the shoulders of giants. There are people that have done it before us, and there are paths that have been cut. And if we find these people, convince them to talk to us or to start doing business with us. That way we can avoid a whole bunch of pitfalls, get there sooner, and most importantly, get there without losing what we've worked so hard for our whole lives.
Yeah, I think finding like a good team, good partners is very, very key. And if you learn like through the process, then it builds your confidence as well over time.
Yeah, exactly. I found that with clients of mine or clients of ours, is what some of them want is they want to do it for themselves, but the first time that they do go through the process, they want their hand held. So we just sort of help them. We help them through the process. We tell them what we're doing. We introduce them to the people we're doing business with. That way, they're rest assured that they've got the backing of years, decades and decades of experience in the team, and they're not walking the path for the first time by themselves in treacherous waters. For example, you're saying the rise of the cost of living, what interest rates are at the moment. At this point in time, comparatively to pre-pandemic, trying to do real estate and trying to invest in things right now is much more challenging, because there's a lot less of a safety net when the interest rates are at what they are of today. Then mistakes are a lot more costly, and mistakes hurt more than when the interest rates are a bit lower.
Yeah. I think that's excellent advice. Yeah.
So is there anything else that you wanted to cover? Some things that I think that you said that really resonated with me, for convinced that real estate investing is a good idea, was freedom, cost of living, also the value of investing in real estate. That were some things that resonated with me.
Yeah, I think if you bring it back just on a human level, I think, money has its utility because of your ability to be free and have options. And that's what people want in general. And, if in many cases, like if you're like us and, you're having a family or wanting to have a family, then you recognize that it's not just you, there's like other people to take care of. and so you take on that responsibility, and then you understand, you look at the landscape and you understand that prices are going up, and things are getting more expensive and challenging and more competitive. And so but I think a lot of people are just on a human level are wanting options and wanting freedom, and just wanting to have a good life, like, for themselves. And that's just a human need and a human desire. And so when that's the case, like, people want to find ways to make that happen. And we all only have certain hours in the day. We only have, like, limited time, and we all, like, need to figure out a way to, like, be able to have margin, like, in our lives, and to be able to do that. And so I think what really strikes me is that my dad used to give me, like, really great advice, like, go to college and, like, get a job and make money, and then you can do this and that, da, 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 da. And I always used to say to him, like, that is excellent advice, but I would add the caveat of, like, in your era, because things are a little bit different now. So by principle, why do our parents, or why do people say that? Because it's a very tried and true, like, advice that people give. And the reason why people say that is, on principle, it's, if you work, it's good for you. If you make money, that's great, and then that provides you more options. What happens is, like, when the dynamics change, then can you apply those same principles to get the outcome that you want? And I think what people feel, whether or not they know the actual nuts and bolts of it, what they feel is that just following that formula doesn't necessarily guarantee you that result anymore. And so you need things like leverage. And leverage, very simply, is being able to move, let's say, like, a larger weight, because you've got focus and force working in your favor. So with the same amount of effort, you're able to get a greater result. And so whether that vehicle is real estate investing, or whether it's owning a business, something that allows you to maximize the effort that you put in, so that your output doesn't match your input, but your input is greatly multiplying your output, that's what you want to be able to do. Because time is the fire in which we all burn. We're all getting older. We're all capped on the amount of time that we have. So our choices and our decisions carry a greater impact. And we know that we're facing the rising cost of housing everywhere in the world, but particularly in the West. And so I almost feel like I'm a bit of a philosopher first and a practitioner second. And so I feel it, and philosophically, I think, that's how I look at it. So, once people have knowledge and have the framework, I think that allows people to make better choices. I think a lot of times you just feel the pain, or feel like, the effects, of the situation. And if you don't have knowledge, if you don't have a framework, what can happen is you end up just feeling frustrated and confused. And if you don't have options, you can't move forward, and you don't know what path to take. And that doesn't make your situation better. It doesn't improve, like, your outcomes. So going back to, like, what we were saying at the beginning, a huge reason for me to, like, jump on something like this and do this is to want to provide, like, knowledge and a framework and value for people to be able to essentially win, like, at the game of life. That would ultimately make me quite happy to see other people win and succeed. So that's how it comes about for me.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I also think it's a great spot to end today's podcast. And then we can get into some more juicy details later on. It's been a pleasure.
Yep. Sounds good. We'll see you on the next one.